tell me about Takaran Riyadh, right?
Yes. All right. So yeah, we started the podcast a little over a year ago.
Who's we?
Oh, so it's me, my friend Tom and Jen. We both went to college together. That's how we met. And it's kind of funny because, so I guess the way we got, two friends of mine are actually, not them, got me into the Wheel of Time books. They were really big into fantasy, and they made me a whole list of fantasy that I had to read. And Wheel of Time was on the list, so I picked that one to do, and I started reading it, and I instantly fell in love with it. And a couple of years later, I think it was around, I think that was around the time that Path of Daggers came out, or maybe somewhere around that time that I started reading it. And
so early 2000s.
I think it was like 98.
98? Okay,
somewhere. Yeah, I think it was in the late 90s. It was before Winter's Heart came out, because I think Winter's Heart was the first book that I had to wait for, or it had just come out when I had finished, when I'd gotten up to that point. And yeah, so eventually I'd gotten my friend Jen and Tom into the series. I got Tom in first and then Jen into the series. But I always think it's funny because, I've met a lot of people now doing the podcast who talk about how they've never had anyone to talk about Wheel of Time with before.
Oh, yeah.
I feel so bad for them because I literally have 7 or 8 friends that I know in person that have read the series. So I've always had people to talk about Wheel of Time with. So I feel kind of, I guess, a little more.
I did a little as well. Growing up, I never had lots of friends who'd read the Wheel of Time, but I always had at least one friend who'd read the Wheel of Time. And so I was always able to, talk to somebody when the latest book would come out. Somebody else was there and excited with me, which I took a little bit for granted as well. But yeah, a lot of people don't have that experience.
Yeah, and I know, and I'm glad they've been able to, find the community and join the community and have other people to talk about it with, whether it's, even if it's just on Twitter or, Facebook or whatever. But yeah, it's nice that everyone's gotten together. And we were never really part of the community. I guess because I had friends, I would troll some of the old websites like Drag 'Em Out and Theoryland and the FAQ and Whatmania and all those sites. But I never really posted too much or anything like that.
So you're saying, I would say lurk rather than troll.
Yes, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Lurk, not troll. Yeah, I was a lurker for most of the time. And, when the series ended, I think I was at that point, every time a new book would come out, I would reread the book before it again, just to get ready for the new book. So I think after Memory Light came out, I read that. And then maybe a few months after that, I reread it. And then it was kind of out of my mind for a while. It was over, it was done with. I think it was kind of almost, it was sad, obviously,
right,
because it was over.
Because you were out of the universe and there was no more. But it was an ending, right? It wasn't the ending, but it was an ending.
Damn good ending. So then it was kind of out of my mind, really, for a long time. And then, news that the television show was going to be coming out kind of, rejuvenated that. And it's funny, I think it was around that time I got excited. And then I was I was trying to find, a new podcast to listen to. And I was oh, let me just see what Wheel of Time podcasts are out there. So I literally pulled out Spotify and I typed in Wheel of Time. And What Spoilers was the first podcast that popped up.
As we should be.
So So I started listening to it, and I immediately got hooked on it. And I was listening to you guys for I think I started listening to you in maybe mid to early 2019. So a little over a year ago. And I binged all the way up to probably the end of somewhere towards the end of Fires of Heaven at that point was when I was I want to do a podcast now. So I was and it was funny because I had a bunch of friends that have read the series. I was which one of my friends should I ask to do the podcast with?
Because that's a whole different level, right? Reading the series is one level, doing a podcast is another level, and you got to have skills for both.
Oh, dude, Seth, you don't understand. I made a list of all my friends who read the Wheel of Time, and I was pointing pros and cons of each of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got that. That's how I do things.
So how do your friends who didn't get picked feel? Are they listening to this being that son of a bitch?
They don't know. I never really told most of them that I did this.
Well, do you want me to bleep some of that out?
Well, they're not the only ones who are going to listen to this. Probably are Tom and Jen, and they got picked.
Good.
So then I wound up asking. It was funny. We were at a barbecue at my house that summer. I think it was that July 2019. I was like, "Hey, you guys want to do a Wheel of Time podcast?" And they both were "Yeah," no questions asked. They were just "Yeah, we want to do it."
And you're focused on the TV show, right?
Yes, so that was our other thing, was like, as I, after listening to you guys and I started looking around and I was like, wow, there's actually a lot of podcasts out. And they were mostly all reread podcasts. And I was like, I don't want to do another reread podcast. There's a lot of them already out there and a lot of them are good. So I was like, let's just focus on like the television show, because the show's coming out. And then, our whole thing was like, if the show becomes big, well, let's ride those coattails of the show.
Tell me about it.
So that's what we decided to do. So we basically every week we'll talk about like the latest show news, and then we'll also like pick like a topic to talk about, whether it's a character or a piece of lore or something. We'll always try to tie it back to like the show, as like, how will they adapt this, or is this going to get cut, things like that.
So how frustrated are you with the inconsistencies of What Wednesday?
Yeah, so yes, it was very frustrating, and if anyone listens to our podcast, it was in our Discord server every Wednesday before that reread, when they were doing the reread while on Prime, we were like, all right, so what are they going to give us this week? what aren't they going to give us this week? It was fun, but there's so much stuff out there. It's amazing. There's like there's a small group of people who like literally hunt the internet searching for news, and like they're searching Twitter, they're searching Instagram, looking at actors and trying to see who's in Prague and who said that they were filming an Amazon series at this time. And we're pretty connected to them. So yeah. And they're always like, if there's a certain group of people, like there's Narg and there's like the Watt series people, they're like the best people to follow if you want to like keep up on the TV show news.
As much as I love the books, I'm very much a TV, not a novice, but I'm not an acolyte, I'm not really out there trying to figure out, I'm like, oh, I can't wait for the TV show to come out so I can watch the TV show. But that's what I'm excited about, is the show. I don't really want to know what the Whitecloaks look like ahead of time.
Oh.
So like,
I do.
Yeah, I know you do. I know. And that's why I'm like, and I'm glad that you are doing that. And I'm glad that there's somebody out there producing that kind of content. And, it's funny for someone who, does a podcast called What Spoilers. I don't really want any spoilers on the TV show.
You've been spoiled. Yeah, you already have your spoilers.
Yeah.
You don't want. But you know what's fun, though? It's, Seth, the best part is the speculation. Is like, ooh, who's this actor playing? Like, when you find out somebody's on the show, but you don't know who they're playing because it wasn't officially announced, and then trying to guess what character they are or what they look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun just doing the whole speculation portion of it. So.
Which is interesting, and I definitely come at it from a different perspective, because I like to look at things that are finished, and like, I don't mind speculating about some stuff, but I like evidence. And in a lot of cases, the speculation to me is like, well, sure, that's totally possible. That's just like your opinion, man. Like, and so
yeah, well, you got to pull that.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And I see where that comes from, but it's funny just how much that's not my style of speculation.
I got you. That makes sense. I know there's a lot of people who want to go into the series totally, to the TV show just totally cold and not be spoiled or be, worried about what they're going to do. And I'm like totally opposite. I was like, I want to know if they're making a change that I'm not going to like beforehand. So by the time I see it on TV, I've already gotten past my whole like, this is awful, this is why are they doing this point, and I'm in the acceptance phase.
So this is chapter 26, Connecting Lines, and our symbol is the Children of the Light Sunburst. I'm trying to think, like, what's the crossing lines here?
Oh, there's one part. Yeah, the crossing lines. Do you want me to say it now?
Sure.
There's an assassination attempt on Rand by Whitecloaks.
Oh, I mean, sure, that's the Sunburst, but what the crossing lines I always thought was referenced.
The connecting lines.
Yeah, the connecting lines. Sorry.
I think that's the line of the Throne of Andor.
Yeah, and his relationship to Elaine.
Yeah,
for
sure.
So again, I feel like there's these two different timelines in this chapter, and the Sunburst represents one, and the title represents the other, and they're not really related.
Nope, not at all.
Thunder rolled across the low, brown grassland hills in a continuous peal, though the sky held not a cloud, only the burning sun, still with a way to climb. On a hilltop, Rand held the reins and the dragon scepter on the pommel of his saddle and waited. The thunder swelled. It was hard not to look over his shoulder constantly, south towards Alanna. She had bruised her heel this morning and scraped her hand, and she was in a temper, How and what for, he had no notion. He had no real notion how he could be so sure. The thunder crested. Again, Alanna's occupying his thoughts because it's been very recently that she's bonded him, and he's still getting used to that.
I like how, there's always like a mention of Alanna, at least whenever there's a Rand perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost early on, like that's the first thing he always thinks about is his relationship to Alanna.
Scraped her hand and bruised her heel. I wonder what Alanna was doing. Where is she at this point? Is she still in Camelin?
She's still in the city, in the city of Camelin, because he's in the palace, and he's about to go to Cairhien. But he's been bouncing back and forth between Cairhien and Camelin, and he's going to continue to bounce back and forth between Cairhien and Camelin like 2 or 3 more times, which is part of why his disappearance goes unnoticed for such a long time.
Yes, it works against him.
It very much does. This whole bouncing back and forth is not good.
He's what I was going to say. He's watching Saldaean horsemen. Right.
Well, because this is Bashir's troops.
Yes.
Fail's father and mother, Deidre. Or Dira. I just want to call her Deidre, but I think there's no second D. Dira.
Yes.
And we actually also get some timeline stuff. It's been 8 days since he returned from Shadar Logoth.
Yes, they mentioned that in relation to the last time he saw Sulin, and he doesn't know where she is. He's wondering where she's been.
Right, because she did the hand talk to the maidens, and so now she is serving as a servant to serve her toe.
Yeah, I had to look that up. I couldn't remember why she was serving toe, and it was because when he went to Shadar Logoth, he told her to gather whatever Aiel needed to come, and she did hand talk to the guy Shane.
Right. And that reminds them that they were maidens, which is shaming to the guy Shane, which is Inker's toe. And
what is she working as a maid or something, or like a chambermaid in Camelin?
She's working as a servant, which is deeply shaming. But he's going to change it, because right now she's kind of working hard physically, but he's going to make her. He figures out how to make her more shamed. She starts in the mailroom. Thank you, wind blows over the wall.
That's to work her way up to corporate, to the executive offices. It's like that Michael J. Fox movie from the 80s, Secret to My Success. I think that was a little too bit deep, I think, maybe.
God, can you imagine starting in the mailroom and you're working your way up to CEO of a company these days? It's like a joke.
Yeah, that doesn't really happen. Only in the movies.
Upward mobility. You heard of that?
So I had a question for this because I'm a little out of place in this chapter.
Sure.
So he's watching the Saldaean horsemen. They're doing all kinds of crazy horse tricks and jumping in front of horses and swinging around and things like that. And he looks. He embraces. I shouldn't say embraces. He seizes Saidin so he can see in the distance to look for these 2 stones that Bashir had placed there in secret.
Right.
I don't remember what those are for, so I don't know. Do you? Is that something that was earlier on, or is something that pays off later? I just don't remember.
I think it's just the stones they're doing tricks around. It's like the markers on the ground.
Oh, I thought there was something much cooler.
I don't think so. Oh, got you. Thank you, wind blows over the wall. Nice call. It's the size of the gateway to Ilion, so they're practicing going through a space the size of the gateway that Rand can make.
Oh, excellent. Okay. See, I thought there was some sort of payoff for that. I just couldn't remember what it was.
Mm-hmm. So that's what it is. They're practicing going through the gateway to storm. Basically, this is the size that you're going to be, the doorway you're going to have to charge through.
Okay, yeah, I remember that they were practicing for the attack on Ilion. I just didn't realize that was connected to the stones. Okay,
I didn't either.
good.
Yeah, no.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
That was bothering me.
I highlighted it as well. I was going to say, I don't really know what these do. I assume it's just the marker. I knew it was a marker for horse maneuvers, but I didn't know why they were that far apart.
They're just basically showboating right now, these guys.
Oh, totally.
All the things that he's describing they're doing.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever seen, horse riders show off where they do the whole, leaning off the side and slapping the ground? I mean, I feel like we, with the Dothraki, and we hear about that a lot.
Yes.
And so I imagine this is sort of
some
similar.
westerns.
Yep.
If you watch some old westerns, they do that too, right? With their trick gun shooting on the horses and things like that.
Having lived in Texas for a few years, I went to some rodeos and saw that in real life as a child. Some pretty amazing horse tricks that are still done in rodeos and circuses.
Yeah, that's what came to mind actually when I was reading that, and I was like, they're just showboating right now. But yeah, they're practicing for the Ilian attack, and now I know what those 2 stones were for the gateways. I wonder why he had to place them there in secret, though. Like Bashir had to place them there in secret.
Probably because he went and opened a gateway, and he didn't want anyone to see him open the gateway and to see how big the gateway was that he could make.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then.
And so I'm guessing like Rand was there, opened the gateway, and the Bashir was there as well, placing the stones.
Yeah, and then that's when Bashir's wife comes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she just kind of stares him down.
Is my husband amusing you? She never gained Rand a title, never used his name. I mean, it's just Fail, only older and more badass without any of the insecurity. And huge.
And much bigger, too.
Yeah. No, she's always like the Amazon. I always picture her as like, just like, because she's not a fat or large or muscular woman. She's just like, you look at her and she's proportionately 7 feet tall.
Yeah, he says that, right? Not stout, nor even plump, simply big.
It's like from a distance, if you saw her, you'd be like, oh, what is she, like 5'5"? And then you get up close, like, nope, 7 feet tall.
And I wonder, does he ever compare her to his height? I don't think it's in this chapter, but I'm wondering. She's nearly a hand taller than her husband, but Bashir is short.
Bashir
though,
is
I
short,
think
yeah.
Described it.
I seem to remember 6'7".
So is this too? I was wondering this part too, because he starts thinking, about Lews Therin talking to him, and then he reveals, one of the answers from the Stone Tear Angreal in Tyr. He says, if you would live, you must die. Is that the first time we get that he reveals that answer? I couldn't remember.
I think so, because that's one of the answers he gets in the Twisted Stone Gateway from the Aelfin and the Eelfin.
I just couldn't remember. I was like, I think this is the first time we actually hear that, but these books all blend into one for me. So
they do. I think that's the first time that we get the "to live you must die," because the whole thing is the West and the South must be as one, the North and the East must be as one. 2 cannot be one. You must stand against the 2 as one. If you would live, you must die.
Oh, that's all part of that same answer?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a long answer.
That's a long answer. So the 3 questions you get is, how can I fulfill the prophecies of the dragon and survive? And he gets that answer. How do I cleanse Sidene? The answer is, what is unlike attracts, what is like cancels, let one absorb the other. And how can I destroy the Dark One? What was, is, and will be, to choose the fate of your kind. Without choice, humanity is dust. Now, I think that's from the Companion. I'm reading it on Reddit.
Yeah, that's the vaguest one, I think, out of all these. But I mean, this one, if you would live, you must die. Obviously, that's, that's clear now that we've finished the series.
Oh, totally. Right.
It's the whole body swap.
And if you read it as a whole sentence, 2 cannot be 1.
That's talking about him and Moradin.
I think so. You must stand against the 2 as 1.
So, stand against the 2 does that mean stand against Moradin and the Dark One?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting.
You must stand against the 2 as 1.
I think as 1 is saying you, Moraine, and Nynaeve have to stand as 1 against Moradin and the Dark One. Maybe?
Okay.
That's a tough one. 2 cannot be 1. Must stand against the 2.
I never even thought about that, but that's got to be Moradin and the Dark
Yeah.
One. The two he's talking about. Yeah, interesting. And then the last part is if you would live, you must die? Or is there another sentence in there?
That's it, yeah. If you would live, you must die.
Yeah, so this is all referring to Moradin then. The whole entire
I agree with that, yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of a big drop right there if this is the first time we're getting
I agree.
it.
Someone pointed out that the South and the East, the West and the South must be as 1, the North and the East must be as 1, is basically describing the ancient symbol of the Aes Sedai. Is you have like the top and right as 1, and the bottom and left as the other.
See, I wonder if he meant that, right? Because I think I always took that as, and I think a lot of people took that as, is talking about the actual land with the Shoanchen, and got the Shoanchen have the west and the
South.
What is it, south? And then he has the north and the east.
If you kind of look at it, the west and the south is like the Fang, and the north and the east is like the Tyr.
Oh, that's cool. I never thought about it that way.
Or vice versa, depending on how you want to.
Yeah, that's cool.
I just read that again. I wish I could come up with all these ideas, but most of them I've read somewhere else over the course of my life.
Yeah, that's what it's called crowdsourcing.
Exactly.
It's a good way to handle things.
He starts talking to Lews Therin. So I like, is there more to you than a voice? It's like, so what's your opinion on Lews Therin? LTT in his head?
So originally, I had always been of the mind that he was actually talking to him, but then I've been swayed back to it's just in his head. It's his madness, and he's going crazy, and this is the voice. But it's hard. It's so hard to separate the memory, because he does actually have memories from Lews Therin, and I guess it's hard to separate the two, and that's probably why I always thought that it was actually him talking to him, but I've changed my mind on that.
Rand is, I mean, everyone knows where I stand, but they're Rand's own memories, in a way.
Well, yeah, technically they're his memories because they're the same people, right?
And that's why it always made sense to me, is like, oh, the voice in his head is the madness, and like the memories are something that Rand has. And the taint allows him access to them, but they're his memories. Always were.
I wonder, so now that just made me think of something, because, and I've never talked about this before, thought about it before, but like the Heroes of the Horn, when they're in Teleran Riyadh, waiting to be spun out, they have all of their memories, right? So I wonder if this is like another kind of connection to Rand kind of being like in Teleran Riyadh simultaneously as he is in this world.
Or maybe like going in Teleran Riyadh in the flesh has something to do with that.
Yes, or that too. Yeah, because the dark one, the wise ones always say that it's of the darkness or something
it's an
like
evil
that.
thing.
They refer to its danger.
Then maybe when he goes in the flesh, he sort of reverts back to his all memories version of himself, the LTT Hero of the Horn version.
Yeah,
that has all the memories.
He's like pulling memories every time he goes in there. He's pulling memories from LTT or all of the past dragons.
My counter argument is, then why doesn't he have any memories from earlier life?
Well, that's what I was going to say. He would have the other dragons too, right? But yeah, that's weird. He would have all of the other dragons' memories. That'd be a lot of memories too. Maybe because those are closest in time. They're just the most, just like real memories, like normal people's memories. The closer they happened in time, the more fresh they are in your mind.
And we do see that Brigida loses the oldest memories first when she starts to fade. So it makes sense that Rand would gain the newest memories first.
Yeah, I like that.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a funny, because that's one of those things that we never really find out what the consequences are going into Teleran Riyadh in the flesh are.
Nope. No one's ever said what the consequences are of it. We just hear that it's evil and no one explains. Evil. We never see like effects of it, right? I mean, Rand goes in Teleran Riyadh a lot, but it's hard to it's hard to pull out like the effects of the taint, versus any other effects on him.
He's about to actually figure out where the Rebel Tower.
Oh yes, pretty soon.
He's going to do that by going in the flesh and spying on Egwene, because they're going to go visit Saladar, and he's going to be spying on them in the flesh. Yeah. So he's definitely hanging out there a lot right now. Yeah,
he never goes there via the dream, actually dreaming anymore, right? It's only like in the beginning that happens, and that's just because Shamael pulls him there.
Because now he's warded his dreams tight. There's no way in, there's no way out.
Yeah. So I guess, he's the only one, right? And Perrin doesn't really do it till way later in the book, so.
No, he sort of tried and got knocked on his ass, and now he's like taking a break from it, and like hasn't really learned how to do anything until he needs to.
Yeah.
All right, I really like this paragraph from Rand's point of view about madness, and just like how delusional he is, that he's like talking about how he doesn't have a madman in his head. Or like, if he's seen no sign of madness in his head, and he knows because he has a madman in his head. Anyway, let me read it. He stewed over Lews Therin all the way back to Camelin, and even after they had ridden past one of the long markers of tile roofs lining the approaches to the gates and into the new city, he worried over going mad. Not just the fact of it, though that was bad enough. If he went insane, how could he do what he had to do? But he had seen no sign of it. But then, if his mind did crack, how would he know? He had never seen a madman. All he had to go by was Lews Therin. I don't know that word. Maundering? M-A-U?
Maundering in his head? I've never heard of that word.
Lews Therin, maundering in his head. Did all men go mad alike? And I love that, him being like, I've seen no sign of me going insane other than the insane man talking to me in my head. It's like, come on, Rand. Like, really? You've seen no sign.
But he doesn't think that's it. He thinks that that's really happening, though. So, by the way, maunder means talk in a rambling manner.
Ah. Is that how it was pronounced, maunder?
Maunder. It's Maunder, I think.
It's a new one for me.
Yeah, it's a new one for me too.
Even though, obviously, I've read this book many, many times and clearly have seen the book, but you read something out loud like that and it clicks.
Yeah. Woody end like that, laughing and weeping over things no one else saw or knew. He's kind of already doing that, though. He's definitely laughing. I don't know if he weeps really too much yet about things but he's definitely laughing at things Luz Theron is saying to him.
No, from an outside perspective, Rand is totally nutso.
Yeah, I like that you get both perspectives, though. You'll see, like, the other characters. I think in the next chapter, Egwene talks about that, too.
He's out walking in the city, and everyone's cheering for him, and he's trying not to look, and so he's, like, looking up at the sky, and no one usually looks up, but that's why he sees the assassin.
Yes, he spots him.
Mm-hmm. And that is something, we hear all the time, like, a channeler is vulnerable. All they have to be is surprised by someone with a crossbow. And here they actually give it a shot.
Yeah, not just one, too.
No. There's at least, they gather up 4 survivors, and they said they kill a few more. So there's got to be, like, maybe 10 people involved.
Yeah, there's definitely, right, they gather 4. He kills one of them,
right.
the first one that he sees. And then we know he sees some bodies lying on the ground.
Yeah, well, and the Aiel say these are the ones we didn't kill when they bring the survivors. So that means the Aiel must have killed a few more.
Yes, yeah, he sees a few people dead on the ground, and one of them is a maiden.
I think those took the crossbow bolts, though.
Yeah, that's Desora. She's the one who knocks him off the horse and takes the bolt for him.
Right.
She gets added to his list.
And this is really where the list is born, right? Like, it's kind of born a little bit with Laia, but this is where he's like, I am now, sometimes he ran down that list name by name. Like, this is the first time he says the list.
Yes, because one person doesn't make a list, people.
No.
You need a second person on there for it to officially be a list.
And immediately, Iliena's on there.
Does he think whether to... I can't remember now. Does he think whether to add her to the list, or he doesn't say her name or something like that?
So, sometimes he ran down that list name by name. There was one name in it he had not added. Elena Theron Morel. He did not know how Lewis Theron had put it there, but he would not have erased it if he knew how. So he feels the guilt.
Oh, so Lewis Theron puts it
Lewis
there.
Theron.
Yeah, okay.
Well, quote-unquote Lewis Theron.
Yeah.
He almost freaking balefires the guards, because he's like, that would... If he balefires them, then their crossbow bolts wouldn't have killed the maidens.
Yes, I like that. He was going to do it, and Lewis Theron is like, no, don't use balefire.
Lewis Theron is the voice of reason in this situation.
So this is a perfect part, right, where, like, it blurs between Rand being crazy and actually having memories, right? Because the Ileana part, like, Rand really wouldn't know Ileana, and so that's an actual memory, but he's also hearing the voice as well. So that's what always confused me, was that it, like, kind of blends so well together.
It does. The
actual true memories versus the voice, and it's kind of using both of it to make it seem more confusing.
And that's a brilliant Jordan move.
Yeah. I do like that part, too, with the balefire, how he thinks about that, though. That was something that was cool, I thought.
And so, but I think the real reason he doesn't balefire them is because he goes, oh, none of these men fired a crossbow. So balefire, they weren't the ones who fired the crossbow, so balefire them wouldn't have done any good.
So, yeah, that's a good point. So here's a question, then. If he would have balefired a dead body of the person who did it, would that bring the maidens back, or the people who died back? Can you balefire a dead body and reverse time?
That is an excellent question. So I don't think so, because it's all about how balefire is described as working, as burning the thread back in time, whereas killing someone just severs the thread like it's cut with scissors. Neither one of them destroyed the thread for all time, but if the thread is severed, it's not there anymore, and even if you balefire the body, there's no soul to balefire, and so the actions of that person would not be undone.
So that would have been a cool thing to put in the story. Like, there's a point in the story at some time where, Rand is going to balefire somebody to bring somebody else back to life, and that person is like, just kills themselves, so Rand can't do it.
That would be pretty cool.
That would have been a cool.
Yeah.
That would have been a cool thing to put in,
like
there.
Someone under compulsion.
Yes.
Yeah, that would have been a cool way to... And, like, he balefires the body, and the person doesn't come back, and that's why he stops using balefire.
Yes. That would have been interesting to put in there.
All right. Throw it in the TV show. Make it happen, Joe.
Yeah, we'll try to get that in the show. Balefire will be interesting.
You got the connections to the show, I'm telling you.
Well, no, I don't have. Well, we need to get a connection to Rafe. We gotta petition Sarah or Rafe.
Okay.
Get that in the show.
Definitely. Just pitch a scene.
Yes, I would love to pitch a scene and have it in there. That'd be great.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Fan, do a contest where a fan gets to write a scene in the show.
So they look at all the bodies and the guys who are still alive, and they are wearing Whitecloak cloaks. That's an interesting double way of saying a Whitecloak cloak. How many white cloaks could a Whitecloak cloak if a Whitecloak could cloak cloaks?
A Children of the Light's cloak.
A Children of the Light. Now, I don't think these are Children of the Light anymore.
No, I immediately thought so too. Because Rand's right. Rand says he spares one to give him a message to Niall saying that he's going to come and kill him.
Right.
And I'm like, these aren't from Niall, Rand. Come on.
These are Fane. These are corrupted Fane Whitecloaks.
Yeah, I totally agree. Right, because they note that their cloaks are all like tattered and dirty, and no self-respecting true Whitecloak would have a tattered, dirty cloak.
No, not at all. And Fane talks about taking he's got his Whitecloaks that he pulled out of the Two Rivers. He brought with him this whole way, and he's hanging out. He ends up hanging out with Torum Raiton out with the rebels, corrupting him. So he is outside of Camelin right now, and he basically sends his Whitecloaks in to test Rand's defenses. Yeah, and this is foreshadowing for the slash in his side.
Yes. Yeah, and Niall really doesn't have any motive at this point to try to kill Rand, I don't think.
No. Well, I mean, he's got some. He thinks the line's a little too strong, but he's stirring up trouble, right? He's like, Dragonsworn, go create chaos. Like, he's using Rand right now. He doesn't really want to kill him.
Yeah, it's not his modus operandi is to try to assassinate Rand. So yeah, I thought that too right away. I was like yelling when I was listening to it. I was yelling. I was like, "No, Rand, it's not Niall stuff."
Oh, was I saying Carian? I meant Camelin for Fane. He's in. Yes, he's in with Torum Raiton in the wilderness outside of Camelin.
Yeah,
I mean, he might be in Camelin, right? Like, I'm not sure exactly how that timeline works, but yeah.
So I wonder where the Whitecloak goes. Does he go back to Fane, you think? This guy? Because he's not going back to Niall, that's for sure.
I looked him up. I don't think we see him again.
Yeah.
Probably back to Fane.
You think he would go back to Fane? You think he would be worried that Fane is going to kill him if he goes back there?
I mean, I'm worried. He's a thrall, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he has much of a choice.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, according to the various Wiki, we never see him again, so we have no idea.
I don't even think do we get a name? I don't even think we
got a name. Dimmer Farrell.
Oh, okay. Demir.
Well,
he gets to live, or at least for a little while longer.
Yeah, I would assume he gets back to Fane, and Fane eventually discards them and feeds all his remaining Whitecloaks either to Trollocs or just has them killed. So I would assume he meets a similar fate.
Yeah, so I guess he's not as lucky as Rand says.
I assume that once he was touched by Fane, he was screwed. But that's, assumption. I don't think anyone's arguing with me on that one, though. Oh, and then here's the Rand bullshit. He hurt for the men who died for him, but with them he could remember an old saying, let the dead rest and care for the living. And it's like, dude, do the same for the women. And even then he carries the burden of the men as well. That's one thing we noticed in the last battle. He ends up having to let go of all of the burden of not just the women, but the men themselves who also sacrificed, who became heroes.
Yeah, this is never a character trait that I liked about Rand, with his infatuation with not protecting women and not letting them die, and how much it affects him.
It's a very misogynistic thing, it has some history in Jordan's real life experience where he talks about having guilt for having killed women in war.
Yeah,
and so there's some. It's not my favorite trait, but it is something that is kind of rings very realistic to me.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it causes. There's so many times. How many times is he in front of one of the Forsaken and he won't kill them because it's a woman?
Right. I mean, the whole Lanfear.
Yeah. Yeah. It drives me nuts.
Well, and that's why he lost Moraine, and he blames himself for that. He's like, if only I'd been able to kill Lanfear when I had the chance, Moraine would still be around. She wouldn't have had to sacrifice herself.
That is true.
And it's very true.
Yeah.
But he just he never really gets to that point until he quote unquote becomes Quendiar. And, when he kills Semirog pretty much in cold blood.
Yes, it takes all the way up to that point for that to happen. It's too far.
So he checks out all the women, memorizes all the names, and then sprints back to the palace, leaving behind his Guard, once again, setting up Dumai's Wells and his kidnapping. Stop doing that, Rand.
Yep.
Then when he gets back, there's a petition with the Wave Mistress, which he ignores. He does a lot of ignoring the Sea Folk.
Yeah, he does. I don't blame him. I don't really like the Sea Folk myself.
No.
Yeah, he also thinks, right, he doesn't really know much about the Sea Folk. Like, Moraine didn't really give him much info about them, so I feel like he's...
And he doesn't... They're not really in the Prophecies of the Dragon, either. And he's kind of using them to guide his path.
Yeah, I feel like he's just procrastinating with them at this point. Because, like you said, they're not really part of any of the prophecies, and he doesn't really know much about them. So I think he also wants to kind of go in there meeting them with some sort of background information on them, so he doesn't make a fool of himself.
I think at one point he said, hope to leave them out of the chaos I was creating. I didn't want to get them involved since they weren't technically in the Prophecies of the Dragon, and I didn't need them. So he's like almost deliberately trying to exclude them because he's like, they don't need to be involved, so maybe they're one people I won't destroy.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't need to be involved in the series really much either. So I agree with Rand there.
Oh man, you really don't like the Sea Folk, do you?
They don't. Well, you said it, Seth. There is really no purpose for them in the story. I mean, they do a couple of things, but they don't have to be like a whole new culture of people. You could fill their role with just cultures that already exist and just other people. I
mean, I do like the control of the weather, and I like their role in the last battle as the weather control in Thakandar and keeping it from being overwhelmed with the Bowl of the Winds. I think that's a cool thing to have in there. And I also like them as the only people who can use the Bowl of the Winds. They're the only people with the knowledge there. Like, both of those things are interesting. And I like how the Bowl of the Winds brings the kin together who own it with the Sea Folk who can use it with the Aes Sedai who found it.
Yeah. I think they could cut this all out of the television show.
I'm not going to argue with you on that one. I hope they don't.
Yeah, this is a story. Yeah, this is a group that you could cut out.
You could. I mean, they could be background, You could CGI the Sea Folk ships and have a few,
But we don't get any Sea Folk in this chapter. Just their mention.
Right.
And they don't want to stay in the, they don't stay in the palace. They say, oh, we're going to go stay at an inn.
Oh, I also think he's avoiding meeting with them because he doesn't want to be in the Grand Hall where all the queens are looking down on him, being like, you incestuous bastard.
Yes, you're right. He mentions he's been avoiding that room.
And that's the room with all the queens up on the walls who look down at him. And the last time he was in that room was when he found out who his mother truly was. And he remembers being like, oh, I feel really guilty and I don't know why. Why are they looking at me like that? And this is why. Because he's afraid that he's in love with his cousin.
Yes, kissing cousins.
His kissing cousin.
And he's got the throne up on the pet. Well, right. I like how the throne being back there, him not wanting to sit on it because it's not his throne, and people take it the wrong way and think he's put it up there as a trophy of his conquests.
No, and I think someone corrects him on there, like, don't do that. I think Dylan is the one who actually tells him to take it down, because Dylan's badass like that. So he brings in Elenia, who is, as far as I can tell, a busybody, a gossip, and thinks she has some claim to the throne, but no one would ever follow her ever.
Yes, she's got 21 ties to
31. Excuse
Shara.
Me, 31. Don't. So she would be very offended.
Whatever,
right?
Yeah, one more than Dylan.
Right.
I think she.
Because Dylan's only got 30.
Yes,
it's very, very important that you know that. That's only one measure of the claim. You also have to be a competent leader and not a busybody gossip, which she clearly is.
Yeah.
But I really like this whole scene where Rand cleverly, he's trying to figure out how closely related he is to Elaine. And we get a lot of history in here, which I'd love to hear you talk about in detail. But before we get there, I just wanted to be he figures out eventually that, this whole cousins thing is, a couple hundred generations, or, how many generations back? 1,000 years back, right? So, 40 generations?
Yeah, this is a long time ago. They're talking about Ashara, who was queen back in... Oh, God. This is not even... We're not even in the new NE yet at this point. The calendar changes so much that it's always hard to keep track of it. But I think this is during the free years, maybe?
There's the three...
This is before the new era.
I always go from breaking, post-breaking. So there's 1,000 years from breaking to Trolloc Wars. Then 1,000 years from Trolloc Wars to Arthur Hawkwing, and then 1,000 years from Arthur Hawkwing to today.
Yeah, I think the free years start after the Trolloc Wars, and there's no real agreement by historians, according to the research I've done, as to when the War of the Hundred Years ended. But it's somewhere around 1135 or between 1115 and 1135
Right.
or something like that. They just decide to start the calendar over again, and that's when we get the new era. So this is like literally almost 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, almost exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the War of the 100 Years, doesn't that go into the new era after the?
Yeah, basically the end of the War of the Hundred Years is when the new era starts.
Right.
They just start a new calendar over again.
You know, we think about like 2,000 years is a long time, right? That was Roman era for us. Like, sometimes I forget just how, like, when they're talking 1,000 years ago, we're talking the difference between medieval ages and today, and they're talking about one continuous dynasty that whole time. Like, that is a long, long, long time.
It's funny. It shows how ignorant Rand is, first of all, to think that somebody from 1,000 years ago, that he and Elaine are related to somebody from 1,000 years ago, that they're that close, that they could be that closely related. I mean, they could, obviously, but that's a long time.
That is a long time. It's the terminology of cousins.
Yeah, but I guess by it's technically everyone's a cousin almost.
Well, and that's the whole thing, is this whole anyone who's related to Ishara is a cousin, and that's like saying like anyone who's related to like Julius Caesar is a cousin, and it's like, dude, everyone's got a little bit. Yeah, there's lots of people. Like, you either at that point either everybody's related or nobody is. Right, like that's,
and the blood, it's so diluted at that point too. Over 1,000 years, the blood gets so diluted. But yeah, then I like how he asks her to, like, he's like, if they were merchants or farmers, he's like, if Morghese or Tigraine were merchants or farmers,
and she's like,
she's,
I guess,
like, she's like, I guess they wouldn't even know each other.
Right.
Like, they wouldn't be related. We wouldn't consider them related at all. So,
and so that's a big relief off his hand.
He's like, yes,
I get to still lust after Elaine. Thank God. It's not creepy.
It is. So yeah, it's so weird. It's so like relieving and creepy and funny at the same time.
Yeah. Did you want to get into this history of how Andor was founded? Because I feel like this is a really good sort of deep dive into that, and you have all sorts of great notes about it.
I do, and I have to. I didn't read them beforehand, but I have them in front of me from when we did an episode about this. So this is after Hawkwing's death. So he dies while he's besieging the White Tower, and then the siege continues on by one of his generals, who's Soran Marvel. So he's still sieging the White Tower, and he doesn't lift the siege until his lover, who is Ashara, and Ashara is the daughter of the provincial governor of Andor at the time. She's the one who convinces him to release the White Tower, the siege that finally ended.
Mm-hmm. And she's the granddaughter of the last king of Aldashar, which was the kingdom that sort of was where Manetheren kind of currently is, over into Murundi and Altara.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of, there was a kingdom there before Arthur Hawkwing took it over. And so she's the granddaughter of that king as well. So there is some like inheritance from the previous generation of kingdoms going on.
Yeah, and it's funny actually that you brought that up too, because that was like one thing that Hawkwing did when he took over, was he kind of he like kept a lot of people in charge, but moved them into like to be govern over lands that they weren't from.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of his little political things that he did. So that makes sense. That's why I think Ashara eventually was the governor of what now is Andor.
Right, because that's a little further east than the lands that she traditionally was part of.
Yeah, and then so after that happens, she becomes the first queen of Andor. She declares it a sovereign nation, becomes the first queen. So, and the thought behind this is the reason that she convinced Soran to lift the siege was because she needed the White Tower's support to maintain hold of Andor, because there was a lot of warring going on.
And they sort of grew slowly, and instead of like taking land and then getting pushed back and sort of in this wave-like thing, they just, every time they advanced, they like held that land. And that's why Andor is such a stable country today and has maintained the stability. Is anytime something got conquered, that was it. It was part of Andor. And
I mean, they were constantly at war with Kyrian too.
Oh sure, yeah. Once they got to the River Aranon.
So so then as a thank you, or part of her deal with the White Tower, she promises to send her first daughter to train at the White Tower, and then also make it a law that the eldest daughter of the ruler of Andor would train in the tower.
Mm-hmm.
and also that the ruler of Andor would take an Aes Sedai advisor. So this is where this tradition like originates from.
Yeah, there's just a lot of good history and a lot of things that have come up in the series before. I'm like, oh, that came from this deal. I also like the little thing that part of the reason why Andor mostly has queens is because the men just went off to war and died before they could like get past 23.
Yeah, Soren dies, gets assassinated, and all of his sons die in the war. So that's how her daughter, their daughter, Alicinde, becomes queen. And then the same thing happens with her. All of her sons wind up dying, and the throne goes to her daughter. So it kind of just happens that way. And I guess at that point, it's just like, well, Andor's always had queens, so let's just keep it queens.
I feel like, isn't that how we got the two-term limit for presidents? Is like, we just had our first couple of presidents happen to step down after 2 terms, and it became tradition.
I don't know, because the 2-term limits I don't think was until after FDR, right?
And that was the whole thing, is like everybody else had resigned after 2 terms, and he was the first one who was like, nope, not doing that. And everyone's like, oh, that was a norm. Like, what do we should make that a law. Like that.
It was part of the unwritten.
Yeah, it was always definitely, but it was the same thing where it was just like it kind of happened that way for the first couple of presidents, and then everyone was like, well, I guess that's their tradition.
Yeah, so that's basically how it all happened. Yeah, the daughter heir training in the White Tower and the Aes Sedai advisor was part of a deal that was made, and then the women being queens just kind of happened that way because there was so much war going on. The sons just kept dying, and yeah, that's the history of how that all happened. I mean, there's a lot more that's not related to this, but I won't go into that.
There's a lot of detail around this time that I think a lot of it's in the companion and stuff like that. It's not necessarily in the books themselves, but it was written.
I got a lot of this from the Big White Book, too.
Yeah. I don't really separate. I always forget to separate those two. That's sort of like companion version 1 and companion version 2. But yeah, the Big White Book of Bad Art.
Yeah. And like right around this time, shortly after this, is when like the Whitecloaks formed, too.
What caused the Whitecloaks to form? What spurred that? I know there was they had a founder who wrote sort of a philosophy. Yeah,
Lothar Mantelar. Yeah, he wrote that book. Like I can't remember the name of the book now. It's the one that what's his name? Is it Valda gives to Galad? Yeah. I can't remember the name of it, but he writes that book, and then the Whitecloaks form. But they're not like I think when they first formed, they're not like a military unit. Military necessarily, and then they eventually become more of a military force.
Right, you end up looking through that being like, oh, this is trash. That's right. This is ridiculous philosophy that appeals to Galad.
Yeah.
I noticed there's this, one of the battles is, why in Margraine's reign, 4 kings fought armies against her. There's a town named for the battle on the site. And that's 4 kings where Rand channeled the lightning.
Yep.
There was 4 kings. Little reference there that was like, Rand's like, oh yeah, I've been there. Yep. Blew up that town. I just like that little callback to 4 Kings.
Yeah, you're right. He's asking about like the relations and how close this person is, and then he brings up Tigraine and Morghese, and she mentions, right? Doesn't she mention that he looks a little bit like Tigraine?
Yeah, he's sort of like, once he realizes he's not actually related to Elaine, his mind starts to wander a little bit, and then he's like, wait, what? And she goes, forgive me, my mind wandered for a second. I missed the last thing you said. There had been something in that tugged at his ear. Elena wore the obsequious, flattering smile that looked so strange on her face. Why, I was just saying that you yourself bear some resemblance to Tigraine, my Lord Dragon. You may even have some touch of Ashandra's blood. And, that's because he does. He's Tigraine's son. And he knows that now.
Yeah. Right, he figures that out earlier when he talks to Dylan, right? Earlier in this book?
Yep. So this is him just being like, nope, I have no idea what you're talking about. Time to go, bye.
Yeah, that's why she brings up the ties, the 30 and 31 ties to Ashara. So I always wondered too when I was reading this, is like she cuts off. You're reading that line. She literally cuts off and squeaks, and then she's like basically just gets out of there.
Right.
Like she's totally freaked out. But they don't exactly say what he does or to freak her out.
Oh, he realized he was on his feet, so he stood up suddenly. And so imagine this very tall man in the middle of your sentence standing up suddenly and towering over you and being like, what?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Like, you're being like, you may even have a touch of blood in your, oh God, what? What did I say? Like, basically, like, in the middle of your sentence, he stands up angrily and stares at you.
Yeah. And she was trembling, yeah.
And he's like, I feel a little tired. He tried to make his voice normal, but it's not. You know it's nowhere close to normal.
Yeah.
And he looks terrifying. He's got like this mask on his face. So she's out of there as soon and as fast as she can.
Yeah. And then I think does one of the Aiel look in when they see her run out?
Yeah.
Like, what'd you do, Rand?
What happened this time? Another woman running out in tears. Again. Rand. Stop it.
Oh, Rand. And now he's all happy. You're worse than a lecher, he says aloud.
And I think he's mad at himself. And then, he says he's going back to Carienne, and he's bouncing back and forth between he should just leave a gateway open permanently and just, like, set his chair up halfway between the two. Just, like, have two throne rooms with a window between them constantly.
Tie off a gateway, right?
So you guard both sides, right? Like, but then, like, Aviendha could come and go, and he's trying to leave her behind.
Yeah, that's right. He says, don't tell Aviendha. So Aviendha's, but where is it? Isn't Aviendha in Carienne? Or is she in Camelin at this point?
She's in Camelin. She came with him the last time. He just traveled, and, like, she came with him.
That's right, because she comes with him at the end of Fires of Heaven. She's one of the people who goes to Camelin.
Right, and she's been he's been bouncing around, and she's been trying to stick with him. So she's been bouncing with him every time he goes somewhere.
Okay. I was trying to remember that part, too, because I was like, I thought she was in Carienne, but I forgot. She goes to Camelin with him at the end of Fires of Heaven, because that's when she dies and comes back, right?
Yes, yeah. She gets Balefire resurrected, as well as Matt and Asmodean. Yeah. No, and then she ends up going up when Rand sends Matt off to. In the next chapter, I'm all over the place. In the next chapter, he enters the Teleron Riad in the flesh, figures out where Saladar is, and sends Matt to get Elaine for him. And Aviendha goes with Matt because she wants to reconnect with Elaine, and does the whole, like, sharpening the knife the whole way there because she's going to let Elaine cut her throat.
Yeah, that's right.
So she's torn right now with her toe because she slept with Rand. That's basically, they just slept together, right? And they're just doing this awkward dance of, like, both trying to avoid each other while also really wanting to be together. And, like, that's been super recent. It's been, like, a couple weeks max. And neither one of them is handling it well. Yeah.
There's a lot of toe going on.
There's a lot of toe. Jesus.
Between Sulin, Aviendha, Egwene.
So yeah, that brings us to the end of the chapter. It's sort of a soft finish on that chapter. Nothing really sort of just is like, and now I'm going back here again.
In the beginning, when we first started our podcast, like, we were looking at different ways to record, and we tried a few different things, and we started using Zencastr, which we had some issues with in the beginning, but it's gotten better, and so far we really haven't had many issues, thankfully.
Is that the one where it's a website that you go to, and then... Yeah. I think...
you don't even need to log in, really. Only one person really needs to log in, the host, and then you just send a link, and then the person just clicks on the link and just types in their name, and that's it.
I don't think that existed when we started using Discord.
No, yeah, you're right. It's pretty new, and the only reason we kind of chose that one is because it's free for up to 3 people.
Gotcha.
Because I know there's other programs like it that you have to pay for, and I didn't want to do that, so...
Being relatively tech-savvy is the only way I was able to start the podcast, like I said, 3.5 years ago, because some of the tools that people use now just didn't exist back then. You actually had to be able to set up some basic, not too hard. I mean, you could use Audacity to record your mic, like.
Yeah, that's what I'm using right now.
Yeah, which I mean is still a great solution. It's free. It works with pretty much everything. The quality is 100%. And pretty much anyone can figure it out. So the only issue I have with it is a lot of times Audacity likes to tell you it's recording a nice mic, but actually record the crappy mic on your laptop.
Oh, yeah, I checked that actually before I was recording. I was making sure it had the right mic selected. That's happened in Zencastr with us once or twice, because Tom, he wears, it drives me nuts sometimes, but he wears like a headset with a mic, but uses a different microphone to record. like a better microphone.
Yeah.
So like one time we recorded a whole episode, and he flips up like the headset mic up to top, right? Because he's not using it. And the whole time it was recording from that microphone. So it sounded like he was down a hallway.
I did that with Travis. I had to re-record an episode with Travis once because the exact same thing happened.
No, we couldn't re-record that episode. We did like a pronunciation game show, and we had like 6 people on doing like pronunciation, so there was no way to re-record that. I had to just put it out with the crappy Tom quality.
Actually, you know, I take it back. We started to re-record it, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'll just put out the low quality." I do remember that. Yeah, we went with the low quality version of it. But yeah, I fucking hate low quality microphones. I just want to tear them out of every computer.
Yeah. Well, it drives me nuts. I'm like, why do you use that headset if you just don't use that headset?
The other problem I've had is webcams with built-in microphones that are terrible.
Oh.
Because people will plug them in to do, like, webcam stuff, and then, like, the software will automatically switch over to that microphone, and they won't realize it.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, which isn't quite as bad as, like, a laptop mic, but they're still pretty terrible mics.
Yeah, well, when you're comparing it against, like, the, you know, a actual good mic,
right.
It's, like, so noticeable.
Especially when you spend so much time setting them up with a good mic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Dana's here. Hi, Dana.
Oh, do I know Dana?
Zool.
Oh, Zool. Okay, yeah, okay. My inability to match people's actual names with their screen names really does hurt me sometimes because, like, I'll be corresponding with someone on email for a while and not realize it's someone I talk to all the time on Discord and be having the 2 separate conversations with the same person, and they know I'm the same person. And they'll, like, reference the... And I'll be like, how do they... Oh, right.
Yeah, it's always... you know what? That's why I'm just going to put my name as my Discord handle, just so I don't have to worry about it. I was like, I don't care. Let people know my name.
I think I had Seth on there for a while. I switched it up. Well, it was What Spoilers, SJ. So I got my initials on there.
She changed hers up, right? Dana, you were something else, and then you changed it back to Zool. I remember a while back. There's no Dana, only Zool. Yes, that's who you were, Fendar, and I remember. I think that's when I first met you. No, I'm from New York, not Jersey. All right, that's an insult.
There was some.
Don't insult me.
There was some real offense in that. Really not happy with someone insinuating you're from Jersey.
Tabernus, I currently live in the Hudson Valley too. I'm from the city, but I moved up here a few years ago. What part of the Hudson Valley do you live in? Oh, shit. I live in Woodbury. I'm like 20 minutes from you.
And if the world was normal, y'all could meet up.
Yeah.
Beers at some point, definitely.
We'll hit up a brewery. That's plenty of breweries to go to. Yeah, if the world stops sucking.
There's if you look up, there's a meetups channel in our Discord that's great for stuff like that.
Okay.
You can be like, hey, the 2 of us are meeting up at this time and place, and see if anyone else wants to show up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's funny. You live. That's real close.
Like I said, and it was a much more active channel back when, you know, the world was normal and we were allowed to do that kind of stuff. All right, so I want to throw out a quick question for you, but it's going to be TV show spoilers. So I'm just going to like give people a chance who don't want to listen to close their ears for a second. Skip ahead 4 minutes to avoid TV show spoilers. What do you think about the story that involves Perrin, where he is married and kills his wife in the opening sequence, and that's why he hates the axe?
So I'm one of the people who thinks it's actually true.
Okay.
Regardless of where that came from. Like, I know, like, the website that produced that article about it and says they have evidence of it is not popular, and they're, you know, whatever, but I think it's true. I think they're doing it. I think Perrin is going to be married and he's going to kill his wife accidentally, so to speak. And I don't like it.
Okay. I was curious. That's what, because I was like, there's 2 things. Do you think it's true, and what do you think about it if it is true?
Yeah, I think it is true, but I don't like it at all. I think that's dumb. I don't understand why you'd make such a huge change like that. And I know Brandon Sanderson did mention that there were a couple of changes that he didn't agree with. And he did say that there was one big change that he did not like at all, and it was going to be divisive among the fans. And we know what a big Perrin fan Brandon is. So I think that's the change that he's talking about. And I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me.
So I kind of think it's brilliant if they are going to do it.
Okay, go ahead. Make your case.
Okay. Perrin hates his axe. And he hates his axe because of a scene in book 1 when he's thinking about maybe killing Elaine with it. And the idea that he's willing to use it to do that, to save her, yes, from the Ravens, but the idea that it's that sort of damage. And that doesn't work on TV. Like, you can't, like, it's going to be him sitting there looking at his axe going, I hate this fucking thing. And that's not a good enough motivation, because then it's going to be telling, not showing. And so you have to come up with something he does that makes him hate the axe. You can't just make him hate the axe for no reason. He has to do something with it that is terrible. And it doesn't change his plot at all to have him have killed his newly wed wife. Maybe he marries her that freaking day at Winter's Night. Like, it doesn't have to be this long relationship. It could be a new wife.
I wouldn't mind. So I think that doesn't work then with the whole Fael storyline. Like, because literally he meets Fael like less than a year later, and I think that's like, I don't know. It makes them too mature. They're supposed to be like young and him to be married. Now the only way I say that I would agree with it is if she is a dark friend, and he finds out that she's like part of she's working with Fane or something like that.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
That would work. I wouldn't mind if that's how they played it. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's a huge change and right in the beginning, but I don't know. I'm already prepared for it, so.
Which is funny because I think it's like a completely minor change.
Oh,
right? Like,
one of the main characters being married and then killing his wife right in the beginning of the show. That's a big change.
But it's a change that doesn't change him motivationally. It makes him hate the axe, which is kind of something he already does.
Yeah, it does make him hate the axe, and it explains a lot of his brooding.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. Then we feel less bad about him being sulky because it's like, oh, he killed his wife.
I agree with Tavernus. He said, can't he just hate it because he murdered Whitecloaks?
Whitecloaks, it's like they're just too bad people to feel bad about that. And he does so much more killing of Whitecloaks.
He does feel guilty, though, throughout the whole story about killing them. Well, not the whole story, but, for the first couple of books about killing the Whitecloaks. But, yeah. So, like I said, that's a change. I'm glad that if that's true, I'm glad I know about it now. Because if I would sat down and watched the show and not knowing any of that, and I saw that, I would probably be very pissed and might turn off the TV.
Oh, see, this is where I think there's going to be so many changes. I think we are unprepared for the amount of change. Like, this is not going to be as faithful as the Two Towers. I don't think it can be.
It's hard to say. I was of that thought earlier on, but Rafe has like in his Q&A and stuff, he's like, you guys, like when people were like, where's Tom? They haven't cast Tom. And then they finally cast Tom, and he was like, oh, do you guys really think I was like, when he posted it, do you really think I would cut someone like Tom? And people were asking him in the Q&A, or like, you cutting this character or that character? And he's like, what are you guys, crazy? I'm not cutting like Min and Elaine. He's like, what do you think I'm going to do to this?
No, but like, I mean, there's cutting whole characters, and there's like changing significant plot points for individual characters, And like,
I think that's
things
definitely
around.
going to happen.
A lot of our secondary characters are going to be combined or left out entirely.
Yeah,
it's
that I understand.
Plot lines are going to be moved around. We're going to see stuff from book 6 that's going to happen in book, in season 2 or whatever. Like,
yeah, he did mention that he's going to move stuff, pull stuff from maybe other books and to put it in the first season and vice versa. And I think it's going to be kind of like similar to Game of Thrones, where like the first couple of seasons were very like true to the books, and then as the series goes on, I think they're gonna cut more and more stuff, and it's gonna stray. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, for anyone listening, if you guys were interested, we were super, super, super lucky, Dark One's own luck, to actually be able to interview Jennifer Chion Garcia, who is playing Lyanna in the show.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh,
that's
yes.
Awesome. She's been super active on social media.
Yes. It was literally the Dark One's own luck that we actually got to do this. So check out that episode. I don't remember which episode number it is, but
did you get it?
You can tell.
And any juicy tidbits you can drop on us, or was there?
Yeah. So, oh God, that was a while ago. Let's see. So she did. So this was back in May. So was it May? Hold on a second. I have to look now and see when it was. Oh, here we go. No, it wasn't in May. It was June. It was the very beginning of June. She gave us a lot of good stuff, but like, we didn't ask her any spoiling questions. We knew that she wasn't going to be answering questions like, what character does this character do that, and that character does this, and we obviously knew she wasn't going to be able to talk about that. So we kind of got with more peripheral questions like how she got the role and the audition process and like things that she liked about the character and things like that. So there wasn't really a lot of spoilers in there, but she did talk about like the sets and how awesome they were, and the people that she's working with are amazing. And Rafe, she talked a bit about how Rafe and how passionate he is about the Wheel of Time.
Nice.
That was always that was reassuring too, as like he's like really attached to the story, obviously, as he's mentioned, and he really loves the books and that it's in good hands. She talked a little bit about the costumes, and we asked her about the accents too. We were like, "Oh, do you do an accent?" Like, because we were talking about the different accents from the different places, and she said that Rafe, they're encouraging people to use their native accents, which I thought was interesting.
I like it. I mean, and that makes kind of sense to me based on the diversity and stuff. Yeah. Did you ask about pronunciation at all? Like name pronunciation?
Yeah. So I had to ask her. So I asked her how she pronounced her name, and she said Liane.
Liane. Okay.
Yeah, Liane.
Well, any other names?
No, that's the only one I asked her. I asked her, how do you pronounce your name? Yeah. And then we kind of confused her because she was like, because we were like, Liane. I was like, oh, I thought, a lot of people say Liana. And then she's like, Liana. Huh. Did I get it wrong?
We're like, no, there is no wrong answer here.
Yeah.
Whatever Rafe says is right.
Yeah. It was episode 42, if anyone wants to go and check it out. So I think the interview starts around the 22-minute mark. But it was fun, yeah.
Nice. That's amazing that you got to do that. We didn't expect the TV show to be a thing when we started the podcast, right? Like,
yeah.
And yeah, it's been amazing to see. And like you said, I hope to ride the coattails of the TV show to fame and fortune. But I always consider myself, when you talk about like Dark One's Own Luck, like for us, starting the podcast before the TV show was announced gave us just this huge leg up on having 300-ish episodes out now.
Yeah, that's man, that's a lot of episodes, man. You guys gotta.
It's a ton, yeah. How many are you at now? What?
We're on 50 something, yeah. 58, 59. I think tomorrow we record our episode 59. That's the one thing. Like the one thing that is a little tough about doing like our type of podcast is that like, I know you said you have like a bunch of episodes that you got sitting on the back burner to edit. We really can't do that because we're covering news, so
right.
We always have to be current. So it's like every week we're recording and then we're putting out the episode like a couple of days later because we want to stay relevant, so to speak, in the with the news. We don't want to be talking about news that came out like weeks ago.
Right.
So that's been like the toughest part, I think.
And that was a deliberate choice on my part, is to create. I was like, nope, I want evergreen. I don't want to talk about anything current. I want anyone to be able to pick up this podcast at any time and listen from the beginning and just go through it and follow the books. And like, I'll talk about my life, great. But like, I'm not going to bring up, you're not going to need to know. It's not like in a week it's going to be irrelevant, right?
Exactly, and I like that. Like, I always wanted that benefit of like being able to just record a few episodes, like and hold them, and then if you're like can't record 1 week, you have the episodes to pull out. But
oh, totally, it's super nice. And if I was a better person, I'd be on a more regular schedule. But procrastination happens.
Yeah, it's tough.
How much editing do you do? How specific do you go in? Are you because I talked to the White Tower, and they're like, yeah, we basically just cut off the beginning and ending and like put that out.
I wish I could do that. Yeah. I can't. You know what, Seth? Every time I go to edit, I'm like, I'm just going to do a little bit, and then I wind up like cutting. I spent way too much time editing. Yeah. I'm like a couple out, like 2.5, 3 hours an episode editing. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Too much.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, because I mean.
Okay, so you're the same.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely every sentence gets a look type person.
Yeah.
And the false starts get cut. The get cut. The talking over each other gets pulled apart so that we're not actually talking over each other.
Oh. I don't know if I've done that. You know what I've done though? You're right. I've done that where like if people are talking over each other, but like one person just like stops and they weren't going to say anything, I'll just cut that out. Like so you know because they didn't really say anything, they were just kind of gonna say something but didn't. Yeah. I'm the same way.
The other thing I'll do is sometimes someone will finish a sentence and someone else starts the sentence, and there's just like a second or two of overlap there. Yeah. And if you just pull that apart, the whole thing becomes much clearer.
Okay. Yeah. I'm the same way.
And that way it doesn't sound like we're talking over each other. Like, right there, where you said, I'm the same way, I could pull that back so that even though I was talking over you, it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
So that's one of my... I spend a lot of time messing with that.
I haven't done that yet. Oh, wow. Yeah, I haven't done that yet.
That's a fun one. Yeah, I've got... I would say, I think I have like 4 basic moves. It's the cut one track, cut both tracks, pull the tracks apart, basically, and separate them.
Yeah, I don't think I've done that yet, where I've like moved somebody's track, because then I was like, because then I guess you just have to move that one piece because you can't move the whole track because then everything else goes off, right? So you just have to like pull out that one sentence or whatever and move it a little bit.
Oh, it's all about. I could do. What software do you use?
I'm using Audacity.
Yeah. So that's about. I would split. I could go into a tutorial right now, but I think we should probably start talking about this chapter.
That's probably a good idea.
we could get together afterwards and talk shop a little bit about how to edit. But yeah,
I'm sure everyone wants to hear us talk about editing, though. Welcome to Editing Spoilers Podcast.
Editing Spoilers Podcast. I swear to God, I do want to do a tutorial for what I do, because everyone has a different process. Yeah. And over the course of the podcast, I've started with Audacity and was doing everything Audacity, and I've added little tools for very specific reasons. But now, when I do a podcast, I open it first in Audacity, run it through a set of filters that I know work for me, export it as a wave, import it into Logic Pro, do most of my editing there, export it back into Audacity, run another couple filters on it, export that as a wave, and then pump that into a compression piece of software, and then upload that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So... because I have just like I have a piece of software that I like the compression it does. It's like because you pay per megabyte on Libsyn. Okay. So I'm like, ooh, the better I can compress the software, the less I have to pay. So I'm a cheap bastard is what it comes down to. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
But because you bring it down from the website as an MP3, throw it into Audacity, edit it there, and then just export that as a MP3.
Yep. It's to keep everything in MP3s. It's a podcast. I'm not recording a music album, so
right.
I'm not concerned about the WAV files.
The only reason I use WAV files is when I'm exporting between software, and I don't keep that file. That's just a way to, run a filter using Audacity, and then I export the WAV file into Logic, and then import that, and that's a lossless transfer of data.
Yeah.
But I'm not saving that anywhere. That immediately gets deleted.
Yeah, and I think we're So we use Buzzsprout to the host, so they don't charge per megabyte; they charge per minute. They're charging you for time. So even if I upload waves, I could do waves, but I think Zencaster is MP3s unless you pay for it. Then you can do waves. Right. So I mean, it's not a really big deal.
No, and I generally work in 192 megabyte waves or MP3s. I mean, that's generally more than high enough quality for. I mean, we're not singing, and God knows my voice.
Yeah, exactly.
That good. And generally the rooms that I'm working in aren't that good either,
So we said we were going to stop talking about editing, and then we just continued to talk about editing.
So this is what happens because we are both technological sides of our podcasts.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a bad match.
It is.
We're just going to talk about nerdy stuff like this.
I know.
So let's get on to other nerdy stuff, right?
So what microphone are you using?
Do you really want me to answer that, or are you just kidding?
Hey, well, at least tell me what microphone are you using. We'll just.
My microphone is a Samson Q2U.
I don't. Okay.
Nice and cheap, but it's a cheap microphone, but it's good. It's probably the best cheap microphone you could buy. It's like $60. If you look around, like it's recommended, like for beginners, like everywhere, and it's like they always say it's like the best cheap microphone you could buy.
Because I started out with the Ars Technica ATR, which is it's got the same USB XLR dynamic mic. It's got the same dual. That was actually almost exactly same mic, just by ATR.
Yes.
Ars Technica.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. That's the cool thing about it too, is it's both But yeah, I haven't decided yet to get a new mic. I'm pretty fine with this.
And that's the mic Aradia is currently using, actually, still, is the ATR one.
Okay.
She's got it hooked up to a receiver? No. What's the name of those boxes?
USB interface?
Yeah, an interface. So.
Ah, really? So she doesn't, since it's USB, she doesn't plug it right into the computer, huh? She goes for the XLR.
Yeah, so the only issue we found with the ATRs is the gain on them kind of sucks. It's super low, so even when it's like interface and she's yelling at it, you still only get like a tiny little sound wave.
Gotcha.
And so by putting it into the interface provides the amplification, and then that's the USB. And so and I found that the analog amplification in the interface is way better than the digital amplification that we were getting in Audacity. So long story short, that's why you get both USB and XLR interfaces on those kind of mics.
Yeah, it gives you that flexibility too if you're gonna record on the go or something.
Sure.
Or...
Oh, can I tell you my favorite toy that I found this? It was actually in a Lost and Found, but it's a portable recorder that records audio onto a SD card, and it runs on AA batteries, and it's about the size. It's like it's like a 2005 era technology, but it will take external mics.
I've seen those. You can plug like XLRs. I can't remember. Is it Zoom that makes them? That makes one.
It's a Zoom H2 is the one I picked up.
Yes. I've seen those. I looked into those too at one point. Yeah, and you could plug the XLR mics right into them. Yeah, no, and I actually find they say those are great for on the go.
The built-in mic is actually is almost as good a quality as my Blue Yeti here.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They have the built-in and then the XLR input, so you can do like depending. I think there's a few different models. The higher models get more XLR inputs or something like that. Right. And they have like the crisscross mic, so you can put it like on a table and record like two people. Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah, those are cool.
It's really nice. Yeah, so I'm excited about the next time I go to a con and I could like do recordings at Jordan Con because I'd love to just be carrying that thing around and being able to just basically like be like a reporter and pull out a mic and just shove it in people's faces.
That's exactly what I was looking at it for, because we were going to go to Jordan Con, this year, and that obviously didn't happen. Right. But that was one of the reasons why I was looking at those.
And I think I threw like a 64 gigabyte card in there, and this thing, because it was made in like 2005, like it's like estimates how many hours of audio you can put on there. Mm-hmm. And when I switched it to like 64 kilobit audio just to see, and the number was just like, you can fit this many minutes, and it was like 0.0000000. It was like, whoa! Like I could literally turn this thing on and record low bit audio and for months.
I was gonna say for the entire con.
Yeah, easily. Even high bit audio. Literally, I think it takes about 72 hours of 192 bit MP3. So I could literally just turn it on at the beginning of the con and record everything that I hear.
Yeah, that's cool. That's not fun to edit, though. That's
no,
for sure.
No, I wouldn't do that because half of it would be me snoring. Yeah, excited about that when we ever get to go be in person again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going next year. So hopefully, keep your fingers crossed.
I loved SpoilerCon online, but an in-person Jordan Con, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, you've had the luxury of meeting a lot of people. I've never gone, and Jen and Tom have never gone. So we were like so pumped to be going this year because we were like, we're going to meet all the people, that we've talked to and met in the community. And then it was like, that stinks. But I guess, like I said, there's always next year. So
I remember last year, not obviously the con that happened this March, but the one before that when I went and just being like, hey guys, that you should probably have a panel for podcasters. And they were like, really? I was like, yeah, there's a fair number of podcasters out there. I was like, yeah, there's like us and the White Tower and a couple others have popped up. And they're like, oh, okay. And I remember that was like a new thing back then. So I was really excited about this year going and being like, yo, it's the podcasters. We take over. This is like...
Were you going to do a panel?
Mm-hmm.
Were you going to do a
panel?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, we did a panel the year before, and we were planning on doing another one this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was excited about having a bunch of other podcasters there because we have grown, haven't we?
Yeah, we were excited because we applied for a media pass and we were just like, let's just try it and see what happens. And we actually got approved, so we were like, oh, we got a media pass, yay! So that was cool. So everything got pushed over to next year though. So
no, and we had to argue pretty heavily that first year to get a media pass. They were like, podcasters don't get a media. I think we didn't get a media pass. We ended up getting a.
You paved the way, though.
Yeah, I don't remember how. I don't remember how we got it done, but we were definitely that took a lot of just persuasion, just because they'd never thought about it before, and they weren't even sure how to classify us. They're like, "Are you?"
Yeah.
They like in the beginning, I think they like wanted us to get the media pass. They wanted us to do a bit on the thing. And I was like, "Yeah, of course we're gonna do a bit on the thing. That's why we're going."
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly.
I was like, "What? Okay, yeah, fine, no problem. We're gonna be recording." So,
I was gonna say at that point, the only other real podcast that were out, right, was like Twatcast. Were they like the only other Wheel of Time podcast out around that time when you guys started?
Yeah, well, when we started, yeah, it was Twatcast and the Legendarium guys had done a review, but they weren't really like a podcast about the Wheel of Time. They'd just done like a 4-episode per book, which was still like 30 episodes or something like that, which was a lot more than you could find on most other podcasts about the Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it was us. But by the time that came around, I think the White Tower existed. So we did a panel with us, the White Tower, and Daniel Green.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so the 5 of us got to do a panel together.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, and that was back when Daniel Green was still like had like 1,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel.
Oh wow, yeah, that's right. That had to be over a year ago, right? A year and a half ago.
Yeah, exactly a year and a half ago.
And now he's exploded pretty. I remember when he got his 100,000 subscribers, and now he's like that was not too long ago, and now he's like past 200,000.
Yeah, he's blowing up. No, but he's because I remember Sarah, who works for the show.
Yeah,
being like, oh yeah, this Daniel Green, he's going places, and me being like, ooh, Daniel Green. If Sarah says you're going places, you're going places. Like you got the hookup, So. I remember being like, yeah, this Daniel Green's going places. So I definitely got a chance to meet with him there, and got a chance to.
You guys did an episode with him. I remember him being on an episode.
Yeah, right after that, and we hung out at and just I got a chance to drink with him. We hung out at the bar. Well, I think I was drinking. I'm not sure he was. I'm sorry. We have just gone. I don't have enough human interaction these days, and I have just It turns out the first half hour to 45 minutes of these podcasts are me just being like, hey, I get to talk to people. Yay.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?